community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
A beautiful, clean river doesn't start here. It starts here. What we put down our storm drains goes straight from our streets into our local creeks. Simple changes can make a big impact. Like when you wash your car. The best solution is washing at a professional car wash.
Meeting of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, if you could take roll, please.
Supervisor Klein?
Here.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Here.
Supervisor Hashak?
Here.
Supervisor Norvell?
Here.
Supervisor Williams?
Here. Okay, and then Mr. Snitches from the District Attorney's Office is going to lead us in the pledge today.
I pledge.
Okay, we'll now open the podium to public comment on non-agenda items. Anybody in the room?
Good morning. My name is Megan Wolf, and I'm a library assistant for the Mendocino County Library and an SEIU 1021 executive board member. As our union is currently in contract negotiations with you, I felt it would be a great time to review the MIT cost of living calculator, which can be found at livingwage.mit.edu. According to this website, this is a quote from there. Today, families and individuals working in low-wage jobs make too little income to meet minimum standards of living in their community. We developed the living wage calculator to help individuals, communities, employers, and others estimate the local wage rate that a full-time worker requires to cover the cost of their family's basic needs where they live. So, what is a living wage? A living wage is what one full-time worker must earn on an hourly basis to cover the cost of their family's minimum basic needs where they live without additional public or private assistance. I have previously read this number to you before in past years, and it has gone up a lot since then. I think the last time I was here, 2024, it was at $23 an hour, which was still a lot more than my position was making and is making. And now, as I'm sure you all have experienced inflation, the MIT wage calculator for living wage for Mendocino County for one adult and 0 children is $26 an hour. We have a lot of people here working for the county who do not make that much and will not make that much even after they commit 5 years working at the county, myself included. So, actually that's not true. In 5 years I'll be able to make $26.73. Anyway, and I want to reiterate, that's for one adult and 0 children. If you were 2 adults, both working with 2 children, the minimum wage, the living wage is $30.57. And there are a lot of people working for the county who do not make that much and are married and have 2 kids. So I ask you to think about this, especially as I know you, many of you voted to give yourself a wage increase recently. I want you to think about the people working for the county who are making less than the living wage right now. Thank you.
Chair, I wonder if we could refer this to HR to look at the MIT calculations. I've looked at them in the past and found them to be one of the more credible sources.
Is there anyone else in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no expression online.
We'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there anything on consent needs to be pulled? Otherwise, we'll go to the public. Clerk, proper notice has been established.
Proper notice has been established and all correspondence, if any, received has been sent to your emails.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. Consent calendar item C22 is from our Department of Transportation discussing the state funding for road maintenance. It outlines the main road maintenance work that will be done over the course of the next 3 years, including areas of Casper, Rowan Valley, and Potter Valley. I wanted to bring that to the attention of the public. When I tell folks that there's road work planned for Potter Valley in 2028, they simply do not believe me. There is no trust that the county is going to come and work on their roads. So I wanted to point this out, and I hope we can make good on our promises to our constituents.
Thank you. Anybody in the room like to speak on consent?
Good morning. My name is Angel Slater, and I am the Recovery Relief Nurse Manager at Public Health, and I oversee WIC, communicable diseases, immunizations, community wellness, and the juvenile hall medical, as well as co-manage EMS and FEP. I'm here for Nurses Month, and I'd like to start off with, it's an honor to stand here today as we prepare to celebrate Nurses Week, May 6th through May 12th, and recognize incredible nurses who serve the community every single day. Nursing here is different. It asks more of you. In a place as beautiful as spread out as Mendocino County, care doesn't always happen within the walls of the hospital. It happens on winding roads, in small clinics, in family homes, in schools, and out in the community where people live their daily lives. Our nurses don't just provide care, they create access. Whether it's supporting a new parent, ensuring a child is protected through immunizations, helping someone navigate mental health services, or responding during wildlife season, nurses in the county step in wherever they are needed. They meet people where they are, often overcoming barriers like distance, limited resources, and lack of access to care. Over the past few years, we have all seen just how essential that work is. Through public health emergencies, natural disasters, and ongoing community challenges, nurses have been constant, providing not just care, but stability, trust, and leadership. They've shown resilience in moments of uncertainty. They've shown compassion when people needed it most, and they've continued to show up even when the work is hard, and even when the recognition is quiet. That kind of commitment speaks volumes. In Mendocino County, nurses are more than healthcare providers. They are our neighbors, advocates, educators, and leaders. They are part of the fabric of this community. So today we pause to recognize all the nurses working in Mendocino County, and I'm proud to be one of them.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Karen Lovato, Deputy of Operations for Health Services Behavioral Health. I'd like to thank Supervisor Mulhern and the Board of Supervisors for sponsoring the proclamation to raise awareness to May as Mental Health Month. During May, we raise awareness about mental health symptoms and resources, and to decrease the stigma surrounding mental health conditions. Mental health conditions affect 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 7 youth ages 6 to 17, and 1 in 20 adults has a serious or potentially debilitating chronic mental health condition. These prevalence rates indicate that approximately 17,800 adults in Mendocino County have or will experience a mental health condition. 3,600 adults have a serious and chronic mental health condition, and approximately 2,000 youth between 6 and 17 have a mental health condition. We encourage all to take care of their mental health. Mental health is as important as physical health, and each impacts the other. Learn what good mental health days and bad mental health days look like for you, and create a strategy to respond to the bad days. Practice mentally healthy habits that work best for you, getting balanced amounts of sleep, nutrition, and sunlight, moving your body, engaging in creativity, practicing healthy breathing techniques, gratitude, and monitoring what messaging you consume. Develop a healthy social group and seek outside support when you need it. Find out what works best for you and share it with your supports. Know the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions, such as changes in mood, changes in attending to hygiene or self-care, isolation from others, withdrawal from the usual activities in your life, changes in sleep patterns, increase in risky behaviors, including suicidal thoughts, or experiencing thoughts that are notably different beyond what's typical or normal for you, your social group, or your cultural norms. If you're experiencing symptoms or noticing them in a loved one, talk to your support system and develop a plan to actively care for your mental health, including seeking help from a professional, such as a primary care doctor, support group, helpline, or crisis line. To connect specialty mental health services or for severe and chronic mental health conditions, contact the Mendocino County Access Line at 1-800-555-5906. If mental health symptoms do reach mental health emergency level, contact the Mental Health Crisis Line at 1-855-838-0404. Help stigmatize mental health care by talking to someone about your own self-care practices and normalizing seeking support and care. Be an advocate for mental well-being. Combat stigma and discrimination by supporting those struggling with mental health conditions as you would any other health condition. And wear lime green as the color of mental health awareness. These are for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Norvell, members of the board, CEO Antle. This week, May 3rd through 9th, is National Corrections Officers Week. We've got completed some walkthroughs of the new jail build with a few of the supervisors as well as our CEO. Wanted to thank you folks for the investment into the safety and security not only of our corrections officers but also of the residents in that jail. Next week, May the 11th through the 16th, is National Peace Officers Week, and we want to celebrate the deputy sheriffs and the police officers in our area that are serving on a daily basis. The sheriff's office has had some pretty tough calls over the last month. We've had a terrible homicide in Covelo, just an absolute tragedy. The deputies, my patrol division, did well. The detectives are currently running at 40% of capacity, and they were still able to solve that crime and make an arrest within about 48 hours. So we're continuing to trudge along. You know, numbers are low, but the morale is high and people are working very hard. We have the best of the best working for us currently. This last weekend, we had the awards ceremony for several of our officers, and some of the things that they've done going above and beyond for our residents are just flabbergasting to me. And it doesn't matter whether it's a life-saving award or one of these Medal of Valor awards where folks have basically placed themselves in peril for the service of others. Anyway, over the next couple of weeks, let's remember to treat our peace officers and our corrections officers well, and if we see them, let's make sure that we thank them for their service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay. Seeing nobody else in the room, Madam Clerk?
Seeing no further comments online.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Haschak.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a first by Supervisor Haschak, seconded by Supervisor Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, it brings us to agenda item R1, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of informational reports from the assessor, clerk, recorder, registrar of voters, auditor, controller, tax, treasurer, tax collector, district attorney, sheriff, and various county department heads or designees.
Good morning, Supervisors. Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. I just wanted to come this morning to get additional public information out there on a scam that's happening that's targeting applicants with planning and building services. So there's a series of fraudulent emails that have been coming out from an email domain that ends in @usa.com. They're posing as myself, as the Planning and Building Services Director, and requesting wire transfer of funds. Unfortunately, we've had a few people in our county actually wire funds. So we just want to get this information out as widely as possible to tell folks wire transfer is not a form of payment, and to make sure that if they are concerned, they should contact our office to ensure that the email that they've received is actually accurate and pay fees either by coming into the office or our online payment system. So with that, I just want to help spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Director Krog, apologies for, as you walk away. I know you have no inspections or plan reviews this week. Could you just tell the public a little bit about why that's the case?
Yes, absolutely. So during this week, we have our building inspectors are in a training that is actually a requirement for maintaining their certifications. Building inspectors are required to obtain a certain number of hours of training every 3 years in order to maintain their certifications. And we're very fortunate to actually have a certified access specialist that has come to our county to provide in-person training to our inspectors. So they are in course for the next 4 days. And that is the reason why we are not having inspections. However, on Friday this week, we will be providing inspections and trying to hit as many areas of the county that we possibly can, sending all of our inspectors out in the field. So we'll be making exceptions to our regular inspection schedule to try to get folks inspections as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A little shorter. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm Angela Godwin, the Agricultural Commissioner. I just wanted to give a brief update on the work the department's been doing and I've been doing to address the issue that keeps coming up of neglected or abandoned vineyards in the county. In the past 2 months, I've received over 10 complaints, and I'm sure the board's probably aware of it too. We've been documenting them, but finding out that these, how to go forward. So I'm planning on doing a presentation to the board on the 19th, but I just wanted to update you that I've been working with County Council, Code Compliance, and 2 of the other counties, both Napa and Sonoma. They've sent a lot of their documentation. So I'm really getting my arms around what's going to be required, the type of complaint forms, notices of violation. I wanted to present that all to the board, so the board will have a good idea of work the department would be needed to do to address these issues. Because these properties really can serve as reservoirs for pests and disease that threaten the neighboring active vineyards. So really wanted to come forward with you on the 19th with a whole approach, and I want the approach to be compliance-based. I think that's what the board will find when we go through some of the options, that we really just want to get people to take care of their property or remove the vineyards. But, most of these people are already going through some market issues. They're trying to decide if they're going to keep the vineyards, put a different crop in. So again, there's some new authority that came through with AB 732, which allows us to do civil penalties, but that would be the one of the last resorts, along with real physical abatement. So, but we've come up with some forms and some process. Napa's been doing this for the last few years. I met with their commissioner. I've met with Sonoma's commissioner. So I want to bring that whole thing to you on the 19th, but I just kind of want to preview a movie to come. And if you're hearing from your constituents, which it seems to be as the spring season is coming forth, it becomes more obvious that people aren't doing the work. So any questions before? Go.
I believe we do. Supervisor Williams?
When will the plan be published? Certainly Brown Act agenda noticing, but is there any chance of getting it out sooner? I think this is one where some of the stakeholders might want more time to review before giving us feedback.
I could probably have it. I haven't finalized all the documents that I think we need, but I could try to get something out in the next couple days.
And I'm not pushing you. If it's not ready, it's not ready. But if it is ready, I wonder if we could give a little bit more notice, especially Farm Bureau and other major stakeholders.
And I forgot to mention, but I have been working with Adam Gaska from Farm Bureau. What format would you like to see me put it out?
I trust your judgment. I think you know how best to work with the farming community, but that's the only feedback I've received is sometime these large-scale endeavors come out on a Thursday agenda and people feel they don't have enough time.
And I wasn't completely going to try to give you a finished package because I want to have your input, because this could be the amount of time it could take for the department. Again, and where we draw the line. Do we just take any complaint? There's some details I would like the board's input on, but I have been reaching out with farm bureaus, wine growers. We're all really wanting to just make it a better growing agricultural experience and be good neighbors. So but I just wanted to update you because it is becoming more and more of an issue. And there's quite a few articles that have been out recently.
Thank you.
Okay, but thank you.
Good morning, Sherry Johnson, Human Resource Director. So I wanted to update the board and the public on 3 of the recruitments that we've been working on. So tomorrow we have the Chief Executive Officer interviews with the board. So there's 3 applicants. So please stay tuned for that. And also wanted to update you that the for the county council position, an RFQ went out recently for proposals for to law firms to look at potential county council, but also working with that is also we're working to Human Resources had posted an opening for county council, and it's flying on our site right now, but we also are in negotiations with an executive recruiter, so hopefully to have that contract next week, so they'll take over that part of the recruitment. So that is working right now. And also wanted just to keep you updated on the county health officer. So we have been unsuccessful with that recruitment, still working on that. Human Resources is flying that. We've had 5 applications this last month, but they did not meet the qualifications. So we are working close with Dr. Miller, so to keep the interviews going, keep it active. So we're still really looking for a county health officer, and so but we still have the contracted doctors that we are working with. So thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Human Resources Director, have we looked at having a county health officer as a shared resource with other counties? Has that been a possibility?
Yeah, we are talking to Dr. Miller about that, so we have been in conversations with her. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nobody else in the room? Madam Clerk, do we have any staff online?
Seeing none.
Okay, public comment on this item? Anybody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for acceptance of the informational reports. Supervisor Williams?
Move approval.
I'll second. First by Supervisor Williams, seconded by myself. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Item R2, discussion and possible action, including approval or denial of requests from department heads and elected officials regarding budget impacts, funding, and recruitment of vacant or new positions following the strategic hiring process. Johnson.
Human Resource Director. So today we have 3 departments that will be requesting to hire: Department of Transportation, the District Attorney's Office, and Social Services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, CEO Antle. Jim Snitches, Chief Investigator, District Attorney's Office. Last week I prepared a letter that I submitted on a vacant position regarding the victim witness advocate. And this position was generated from someone seeking employment elsewhere. So I'm here to answer any questions regarding that replacement position.
Supervisor Haschek.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for providing the information about how that is going to be paid for. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board, Chair Norval. I am Stephen White, Assistant Director of Social Services, and today we are requesting your approval to recruit for 2 social worker assistants. They will both work in our public authority unit. They will be responsible for recruiting, training, and monitoring our providers who work within IHSS. There is no impact to the general fund, and I think you've all received the memo. And if you have any questions.
I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have DOT in the room? No? He's online. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Howard DeShield, Director of Transportation. So the positions we've asked for are in our budget. They, represent vacancies that have occurred. They're not an increase to our existing road crew staffing level. Again, road funded position, not general fund. So I'll answer any questions.
Supervisor Williams.
Move approval of all of the above.
Second.
Okay, no more questions from the board. We'll go to the public. Anybody in the room? No. Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay. We do have a first and a second. First by Williams, seconded by Haschak. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Item R3, discussion and possible action, including direction to staff regarding updated cash flow projections for the Amoresco proposed energy saving performance project on whether to continue with the project or not. This is the executive office. Ms. Pierce?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, CEO, Antle, County Council, Elliott, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So today we're in front of you to discuss the Amoresco project again. So as a brief history, I will not read all of the agenda summary, but we were in front of the board on March 24th, where staff was provided direction to work with a newly created ad hoc to review the new information and return to the board with a completed plan to either continue or stop the project. So ad hoc and the staff met with Amoresco on April 16th to discuss the most recent changes to the cash flow. In that meeting, we discussed the price increases were due to the utilizing the new foreign entity of concern compliant modules and inverters, the inclusion of an investment tax credit of 30%, and energy savings escalations at 6.5% based on the county's published rates. So after that meeting, the county looked into the investment tax credit a little further, and it's described in the agenda summary. But staff is concerned about meeting the requirements and the timelines around the investment tax credit. So we're asking the board to look at the cash flows that exclude the tax credit to be conservative, because we do not believe we'll be able to meet those deadlines. Additionally, the staff and ad hoc went back and reviewed the 6.5% energy savings escalation. We compared it to PG&E rate increases over the last decade. And their increase for their compounded annual growth rate was roughly 2 to 4%. The ad hoc also did reach out to the city of Ukiah to understand what their growth rate was, and if 6.5% was reasonable. Based on the feedback we received from the city of Ukiah, over the last 30 years, they believe the growth rate should be closer to 2.85% instead of 6.5%. So we've attached 6 different cash flows with the tax credits and without the tax credits at different rates. I'm going to turn it over to the ad hoc to discuss, but please remember the county did allocate the funds for a solar energy project to reduce the county's carbon footprint and to reduce the county's ongoing energy costs. As a baseline condition, a proposal must demonstrate the savings exceeds total expenses over the project. But to be fiscally responsible, we should take into consideration the net present value calculations. So now I'll turn it over to Supervisor Williams and Haschak.
So one of the things that caught my eye was the previous iteration, Amoresco had the energy escalation of 6.5%. So there's an assumption built in for the life of this project, about 25 years. Every year, the competing energy will rise 6.5%. And I didn't think that was right, because I know the CPUC has 3.5% for PG&E for the next 5 years. And they have undergrounding, they had a bankruptcy, they have vegetation. City's probably going to come in better. A quick call to the city of Ukiah highlighted the 2.85% over the last 30 years. In recent times, they have increased at a more substantial annual rate. But my read of that and talking to the city staff is it's like the way the county adjusts some of the fees. We wait a long time and then there's 100% increase in the fee. It's because it hadn't been adjusted in years. The average the city is very competitive with PG&E. They're coming in the long term lower. So if you take their rate, even if you bump it up 50%, this is a project where we're going to lose money. We're not going to recoup our investment over the life of the project. It violates one of the two requirements that we put in place when we began this effort. So I think that's a non-starter. And I want to credit the city of Ukiah, their staff, for working with us, being so prompt in answering questions, identifying that these types of projects don't work because the city is such an efficient energy supplier. Their rates are so low, we're not going to beat them installing solar within their service area. And then secondarily, they don't do net metering. Maybe they can't afford to do it yet. It's a large upgrade. Without net metering, when that sun is beating on the panel Saturday, Sunday, and there's not much energy use in here, our meter isn't running in reverse. We're not getting a credit for that. So that's another variable that makes it non-feasible within Ukiah city limits. If we were to do this project at one of our other locations, Fort Bragg or Willits, we would be competing against PG&E's higher rates, and we would benefit from the net metering. I think the ad hoc would like to talk about what we do if this is non-viable, so that we're not telling the public, no, we can't move forward, but we're going to have to tune the scope of the project to make it financially rewarding.
Thank you for that. Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, I appreciate Supervisor Williams working with me and staff on this issue. And, we started this project and dedicated that money for two purposes: to reduce the county's carbon footprint and to reduce the county's ongoing energy cost. So our understanding is that this project would reduce the carbon footprint by, remove 70,000 pounds of CO2 each year, but we can't make it work, with the financials. And so I think that Supervisor Williams and I, as the ad hoc, would recommend that we don't pursue this project, but that we continue discussions and maybe form a new ad hoc to look at options with Sonoma Clean Power, that they're willing to work with us, look at some of the facilities that we have outside of the city of Ukiah.
Okay, thank you. No more questions for the board or comments? We'll go to the public. Anybody in the room like to speak on this? No? Madam Clerk?
I'm seeing one comment online, Peter McNamee.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this. Basically, there have been environmental folks throughout the county now for decades that have been pushing the county towards lowering its carbon footprint and for taking advantage of solar, which is no longer a bleeding edge technology. It's an industry standard, not just in the United States, but globally. The price of panels has been consistently going down. The price of batteries to store energy has been consistently going down for many decades now. And it's very frustrating that we have not seen the county in the last 5 years be able to move forward on a project. We don't dispute the numbers that are being presented here today, but we think they're also, what's not being presented here are the lost opportunities that delay has cost the county, and that many of the reasons why these costs no longer work is simply because of political decisions that have been made in Washington about discouraging solar at the national level. So we would encourage the board to appoint a new ad hoc to look at alternative siting of solar and make a determination as to how that might work out in terms of meeting the fiscal requirements. Basically, I think our position as a community of environmentalists is that we want to lower the carbon footprint for the county, but we want to do it fiscally responsible. And we may have to delay installation of a project until we get some resolution of these antiquated policy of our federal government relative to solar utilization. It's inevitable that we have to do this. And as I said, it continues to be rolled out on a global basis. There's more solar panels being installed this year than have ever been installed on a global basis. And that means that it does make sense. It's actually less expensive to install solar as an energy source than it is fossil fuels. And so the question may just be a matter of timing, and I encourage the board to go ahead and appoint a new ad hoc. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, anyone else?
Seeing no further comments online.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and or action. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I would move that we postpone or not go forward with this plan with Amoresco, and that the ad hoc is appointed to pursue other options.
Supervisor Williams?
I'm going to second that, but I ask that we strike the word postpone. I want our staff time to be used efficiently, and I don't want them spending more on a dead end. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry.
And I just, before we close this, I wanted to thank the executive office and facilities. I feel like we got to the bottom of this really quick once we all started working together. It was a great experience. On the new ad hoc, I want to be clear on scope so that we don't have to return to the board. As I understand, the scope would be analyzing all county-owned properties to determine financial feasibility to install green energy that would reduce carbon footprint and save the county on annual utility costs.
As well as look at options with Sonoma Clean Power?
Yes.
Okay. And the first agrees with all that?
Yes.
Okay, we have a first by Supervisor Haschak, a second by Williams. Supervisor Klein?
That's a pretty wide scope, so I'm curious from County Council and the Executive Office if there needs to be a little bit more detail just on the scope of that. Looking at all county properties seems like a pretty large scope.
Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, if I could clarify before staff. Sonoma Clean Power, we didn't meet as the ad hoc, but Supervisor Haschak and I have talked to Sonoma Clean Power. We're a member of this JPA. They have expert staff that's willing to look over our property list and do that legwork for us, so it wouldn't put burden on our staff to do the analysis. What we would be asking our county staff to provide is the list of APNs or addresses of county-owned parcels.
Thank you for that clarification. It's county-owned parcels, and I believe outside of the city of Ukiah city limits, if I understood prior.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Supervisor Mulhern, you have your pen up?
Withdrawn.
Okay. Supervisor Klein, does that answer your question? Okay, again, first by Supervisor Haschak, second by Supervisor Williams.
Through the chair, if I may, would the first or second like to disband the existing ad hoc?
Absolutely, we do.
Yes.
You have everything you need, Ms. Bearden? Yeah, okay, we'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
And real quick, just thank you to the ad hoc and to staff for getting that done so efficiently. Thank you. Item R4, discussion of possible action, including acceptance of presentation of third quarter budget report on the status of county departmental spending and revenues for fiscal year 25-26 and executive office recommendations and adoption of resolution amending the fiscal year 25-26 adopted budget. Ms. Pierce and Ms. Rakes.
If I may, I'd like to start.
Thank
CEO Antle. I want to start with an appreciation for this board for taking fiscal stewardship seriously, such as the last item. Strategic hiring process has worked very well this year, and prioritizing system improvements. I'd like to thank the departments for showing leadership in financial restraint and being good stewards of public funds. This shows what we can all accomplish when we work together as a county team. While this year's budget is coming to a decent close, I still have many concerns for the future unknowns for fiscal year 26-27, which I will discuss in the next item. At this time, I will turn it over to IT Director Tony Rakes as Deputy CEO.
Good morning, Chair Norvell, members of the board, CEO Antle, County Council Elliott. Tony Rakes here to present the third quarter budget update for you. We'll start here with a summary of our general fund position as of third quarter. We are looking right now as with our revenue projections, our non-departmental ND revenue coming in approximately $2 million above where we projected at mid-year. A further slide will show that that is approximately $5.4 million greater than where we started with the adopted budget. Again, that's for non-departmental revenue. That combined with departments coming in meeting in total the 6% attrition savings means that we are now projecting for the current year, fiscal year 25-26, to only require $700,000 in one-time funds used currently for offsetting public safety salaries to end the year with a balanced budget, which is a incredibly positive development since our original conversation at the beginning of the year, where we had appropriated and set aside $6.15 million in one-time funds to balance the budget. Now, a reminder with that, those one-time funds were appropriated for one-time expenses. They were not meant to cover operating expenses, but between the departments coming in with their attrition savings and the additional revenue that have been projected since the adoption, we do not project to need the vast majority of that one-time funding. Our next slide. Here we have a slide regarding our health plan. So right now we're recommending a transfer of $2.8 million to our health insurance fund, or ORG-HI, specifically for two purposes. One, to address cash flow, to manage cash flow with monthly expenses and revenue timing. That's $500,000 that we're recommending a transfer from our non-departmental ND for that purpose. And the second is remaining ARPA funds, or American Rescue Plan Act funds, $2.3 million to transfer into the health plan to offset health insurance costs, expenses, up to December 31st, 2025. Those funds have a requirement to be used by the end of 2026, and that they're specifically need to be used for expenses that took place within the 2025 and prior period. So we're recommending to put that 2.3 into the health plan to offset those first year expenses or first part of the year expenses, along with the $500,000 to manage that fund balance and cash flow. Our next slide. We have here our familiar revenue projection slide. Now, this is a little more detailed from what I started with the summary, but we have projected now as of Q3 about $100 million as far as our non-departmental revenue. That's again an increase of $5.4 million over the adopted budget and $2 million over what we had projected at mid-year. And we also have the Exhibit A, which also contains more details as to that breakdown. The next slide, however, does provide us some highlights as to what the impacts or the changes were, the primary changes for non-departmental revenue. We have here our secured property tax, $1.4 million, along with a small jump in our sales tax, a larger jump in our Measure P sales tax, but keep in mind that's offset by an operating transfer out because that's set aside for the fire districts, and that's included in that bottom line there, the transfers out, that $1.5 million. We had an increase in our TOT room tax, franchise tax interest, county cost plan, and then a slight reduction in multiple categories in that revenue reduction, $418,000, which includes you have Williamson tax, tobacco settlement, opioid settlement tax, etc. But in general, add those all up and you come in with that $2 million more than what we had projected at mid-year. So next slide. Now our budget schedule is getting far shorter than it started at, which means we only have our June 2nd budget hearing and proposed budget meeting. So that's our next one. This is our last budget workshop until that point scheduled. And lastly, we have our CEO recommendations. We have our accept the fiscal year 2025-26 third quarter report as presented, and approve the third quarter budget adjustments and administrative cleanup in attachment A. Approve fixed assets and structural improvement requests included in attachment B. Approve the creation of a new org, which we are calling ITERP, for budget unit 0717 in Fund 7170, that's the IT Reserve Fund. And then approve a transfer of $500,000 from our Infrastructure and Systems Reserve to that newly created org, to org ITERP, and appropriate those funds to Object 862189, which are professional services line, for finance system project costs. And then lastly, approve the transfer of any unused one-time funds for the 25-26 to reserves per the reserve and fund balance policy number 32, with 50% of the potential funds transferred to the rainy day reserve and the last 50% to the infrastructure and systems reserve. That one specifically doesn't call out a dollar amount because whatever potential unused funds at the end of this year to call those out, what's remaining. With that is your third quarter budget update. Any questions or comments?
We do. Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I want to add the CEO to that initial list of why we're in better shape now than we thought we would be. I think there's a lot of work that's gone on cleaning up the way county handles fiscal policy that most people probably aren't aware of and will never see, but I know it's why we're in better shape. One place where I have ongoing concern is the revenue forecast. I've done my own revenue forecast just because there's times where I haven't been able to get data in the past, and I've just done a weighted regression. And my weighted regression seems to come really close to our final number when books are closed. And the county's projections seem to always be really conservative, underestimating revenue. Is that, completely off the record here, is that intentional so that we have some wiggle room at the end to, are we doing this on purpose, or do we need to tune our method? Where's this coming from? Why are we always claiming we're going to have less revenue than we do?
If I may, through the chair, I believe the auditor controller has raised her hand online.
Good morning, Auditor Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison. If I may, through the chair, the question that was asked by Supervisor Williams. There's a couple of factors. Obviously, we don't always know in the auditor's office whether departments are going to come in at their budgeted numbers. So there's an impact in terms of the overall amount of revenue that is received. The auditor's office is traditionally a little bit conservative. We can't predict to an exact science how much interest is going to be available. That has many factors to it, including how much cash the general fund and other departments have actually in the county treasury in comparison to what the special districts and the school districts have in the treasury. And it actually is pretty difficult to project exactly what the cash balances are going to be, as well as predicting exactly what the yield is going to be from the investments, because we are apportioning interest based on what interest we're actually receiving. And so that has to do with maturities, because sometimes we don't receive interest, obviously, until an investment matures. So I would say that for myself, and I believe past auditor Lloyd Weir, we have been fairly fiscally conservative when it comes especially to interest. We would rather not have the general fund depend on more revenue than we're likely going to receive. And then the other area that is actually more difficult to predict than you might believe is the property tax revenue. A factor that I think needs to be cautiously looked at when we do project the revenue is that There's a lot of factors in terms of the timing of the assessments in the assessor's office and also the market in general. So while we may appear to be making increases in property tax for secured tax, that is not based on the original bills that were sent out. Those changes are based on the fact that the county is processing corrections. And for this particular point in time, the corrections are increasing the actual secured revenue to the county. There are definitely times in the past when the corrections move in a downward, based on the sales in the economy and also the timing of the assessments that are being done by the assessor's office. So there is also a concern that we do reach a point where we're actually issuing more refunds in the correction process than we are increased assessments. So, we generally tend to budget the revenue in ND for secured tax based on what the original charges are that we send out those tax bills for in October, rather than trying to anticipate how many corrections there's going to be and which direction those corrections are going to be. Because as I said, we also have that concern that we are issuing a significant amount of refunds. And it happens to be this year and the last couple of years, possibly because of the delays we had with actually implementing some processes in the property system, that we've been fortunate to be experiencing upward corrections for the last couple of years. And I would say we need to be careful about assuming that we're going to continue to have that trajectory. We do build in the CPI increase, that's the 2%, and that's the standard 2% unless market factors or requests for reassessment to the assessor's office indicate a lower amount. But if you recall, you may not be aware, the limit as to the increase in the assessed value is 2% unless there is a sale on that property that increases a higher actual resulting price for the assessed value, or if there isn't a request to actually downgrade the assessment, there could be a lower amount. So those are just some of the factors. We also obviously, receive the projections from HDL for sales tax. It's not an exact science. It does change very frequently. So I'm sorry that was a long answer to your question.
No, I appreciate that. And I understand the reason for auditor controller to be conservative. I'm not saying that's the wrong approach. But as a supervisor, when I vote on financial decisions, I'm having to add in $2 or $2.5 million, knowing that there's more money than what we were claiming. And it just strikes me as not a good way if all 5 of us are doing that. Just muddies the water. The public is looking at this and then hears at the end of the year, we found money, and it's, comes off like, we misplaced it. It was in a closet and we just found it, rather than the organization was so conservative that we had more to work with than we were acknowledging. It would be helpful if the executive office, not auditor controller, independent office, if the executive office could provide a trend line, maybe with weighted regression, to show approximately what we have to work with. I think the 5 of us could have more meaningful discussions about how to budget.
Thank you. Ms. Antle?
Thank you. I would refer us back to the presentation that we had from the consultant, Ben Rosenfeld. Overall, our trend compared to other counties, we are actually very good on our projection. $5 million additional revenue on $100 million, you're not too far off, and we're doing pretty good there. And I would also, in consultation with him, has encouraged the executive office, to your point, to be more engaged in the projections, revenue projections, and that is our intent moving forward, is to be more engaged on those.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschek.
Well, looking at the last recommendation of putting 50% to the infrastructure and systems reserve, and I think that came out of the Ben Rosenfeld suggestions, and I really like that idea because it will give us money to do some of the capital improvements that we need, and it will be dedicated to that fund so that we can move forward with fixing the roofs and some of these other projects that have been put off for too long. So I really appreciate that recommendation.
Thank you. And just one quick question. On page 8, the transfer of $500,000 from infrastructure, You mentioned a little bit what that was for. Could you tell us real quick how you came up with the 500,000?
Of course. So the 500,000 there from the infrastructure and systems reserve to the IT reserve to that org IT ERP that we call out on page 8 was an estimate that we had on first year project costs to seed that reserve with funding for getting that project off the ground in terms of scoping the project, bringing in professional services to help us understand the scope of what we're working with regarding revising our financial practices with regard to the system that we're using. So it was an estimate that we had based on first year project costs.
Great, thank you for that. No more questions. We'll go to the public. Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Rakes, were you through?
Yes, I'm through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dee Pallison from District 5 here in Ukiah. I just want to say that I wanted to applaud out loud when you guys started your report. So good news and good work. Congratulations to everybody for their hard work. My only suggestion would be is we need to stop saying found money. That's what I hear a lot when people talk to me about what's being said here. The money isn't found. That suggests that we lost it and then all of a sudden found it. So I would really ask that we work really hard not to use that phrase anymore and to instead work to clearly explain that we don't know until we know kind of thing. And so that would be my only suggestion. And I try to stress that at every opportunity, but I do get that a lot. And they're like, well, if they found it, why didn't they know where it was? So I think we need to work on getting rid of that thing. That would be my only suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Chair Norvell, members of the board. We didn't find much money. As a matter of fact, we cut back on a lot of services running, currently the central area of the sheriff's office where our patrol beats are. I have 4 patrol beats that require 24/7, 168 coverage, but I've got enough personnel to work about 280 hours out of what, my goodness, what's that put me at? A little over 700, I believe. So we're working 280 hours out of 700 and having to cover the remainder with overtime. We do have some hiring prospects looking at us currently for positions that we still have, but we also need to start thinking about the future. I was looking over the annexation proposals and whatnot, and that does not look like a good idea to me currently in the way that this is being thrown out here. And when we think about how we are going to move forward, we've written checks on employees' backs currently where they're taking on double the work without much assistance. We're beginning to create a working environment that's a little more dangerous because they are working without backup. And granted, it's different when you're a deputy. You get somewhat accustomed to doing that. We don't have backup in 3 minutes, and sometimes it's an hour to an hour and 15. So we have to adjust things to keep ourselves safe and alive. But when I look at some of the new things that have been coming out on the annexation proposal, what I would do is I would encourage this board to please take a look at this and see if there is a net zero, because currently what I'm seeing is there are huge areas that have been carved out, left in the county that are causing a great big drain on resources, while areas are being carved in that are creating revenue. And I don't know that that's going to be good for us in the future. And currently I think that we have to look far enough into the future to say, are we going to remain solvent? Are we going to remain well based on the decisions that we make today? And so as we look more and more into the future of the county and the well-being of our coffers, some decisions are going to have to be made that may not be fun, but they're the right thing to do for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, Chair, where could we direct the sheriff's idea to staff that when the annexation comes back, and I'll say I'm a proponent of an annexation that's a win-win. I think it's possible, and carrying out a long-term vision that the county and city come out ahead. So I'm not against annexation as a concept, but I think the sheriff is right to ask what will the financial impact be on us. I would like that to come back whenever we have the annexation discussion. I think it's really pertinent to this discussion. Is that reasonable?
It is, and it's planned, I believe. Supervisor Klein?
Yes, in line with Supervisor Williams' comments, could the executive office share a little bit about what we know in terms of the financial estimate based on the current map that's being proposed?
Sure. I'll start, and then Assistant CEO Sarah Pierce can comment. What we've seen so far is just a rough map of the area that they're trying to annex to the north and to the south. So it's really hard to get clear expectation on the property tax impact until we have the APNs or a clearer map that we can follow. I do want to point out there's been some comments that our general fund is $250 million. That's not correct. Our general fund, as you just saw for this year, is $100 million. So the impacts start happening with sales tax. We have been able to take a look at that based on the HDL data that we receive. On the current quarter that we received, 15 of our top 25 sales tax producers are in that area to move to the city. That's not it's about $3 million per year in revenue. That's a slow bleed as we take those cuts over a 15-year period as the sales tax transitions to the city. Over a 16-year period, at this rate, today's inflation of 3%, that's $27 million. So you're looking at a little over around $2 million per year. And when you look at the jail and you look at the need for keeping a living wage in Mendocino County, a 1% increases, I think, $1.3 million to the general fund. So we're taking it very seriously. We need a little more information to take a deeper dive into that. But I will turn it over to Sarah if there's something else she'd like to add.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So as CEO Antle pointed out, we still are waiting on the APNs, so we haven't been able to do much data digging and analysis on property tax. We have reached out to roads to see if they're able to provide a high-level estimate, but I believe previously Howard had noted that it could be a net zero effect, so we need to vet this out, because any road miles taken out of our system also affects the calculation for the SB1. We will receive less revenue, so we have to vet that. We are reaching out to public safety to understand data calls in areas such as the Brush Street Triangle. And then we are also reaching out to planning and building to understand what impacts this may have on building permits. We are also reaching out to the auditor, controller, and treasurer tax collector to understand business licenses. That will be a very minimal impact. The other thing I would also like to note is that because of the way the master tax sharing agreement is written, it is nearly impossible to implement into Aumentum. So it will likely need staffing increases in at least the auditor's office to implement the process. So for that, I'll pause to see if there's any other questions.
Just a quick question for maybe clarification for Ms. Antle. You mentioned 14 of the top 25 sales tax producers. That's a little bit of a moving target, right? I mean, that's per quarter or per year. It could be less or it could be more.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. Some quarters it's 13. A couple of quarters back it was 16. It just varies depending on, are we selling a lot of cars at the moment? The prices, gas, fuel.
Thank you for that. Supervisor Mulhern.
Thanks. I'm glad that we can have this public discussion about the financial work that the county is doing about the annexation. I appreciate understanding what the goals are that the county is currently looking at. I also think it is important for us to look at what the projections of the increase in sales tax are. So we can talk about the process over 15 years, but while we're looking at 150,000 the first year and then moving forward from there. So there was, during the master sales tax negotiations, a lot of conversations about the gradual reduction of sales tax. And when we throw out a number like 27 million, I think there's a lot of shock and awe that comes with that, but that's not realistic about what we're trying to actually accomplish with any kind of annexation. So hopefully we're looking at that as well as the other expenses that come from road maintenance. So if you look at the 20-year plan for county roads, you're taking out roughly $20 million in expenses that would be coming out of the proposed annexation area over the next 7 years that are in that plan that the county of Mendocino would no longer have. But beyond that, there are roads that the county has no intention of doing anything on. And so if we're not looking at taking those out of the system as well, and I understand, SB1 and coming out of there, but also we're not doing mowing on those, we're not doing, all kinds of functions that we would do that will free up county roads to be working in other areas. And while I don't believe that there would be a reduction in either DOT or Sheriff's Office staff with an annexation, I think it's a matter of really figuring out how the two agencies can work together. And just as a reminder for the public and for the members of the board, all 4 cities may look at annexation. So while the city of Ukiah is currently working on a community plan and has a proposal for reorganization, there will be other cities that will also be looking at annexations in the future. That's why we have a master tax sharing agreement with all 4 cities.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I think that this is a great discussion about the annexation issue. One question I had before I make a motion to accept the recommended action about the budget is I've seen about, we had that discussion about Bella Vista the other week, and so are we taking into consideration the Bella Vista project and how that would affect, our tax base?
If I may, through the chair, that was brought up at our last meeting and discussion with our council as well as with the city of Ukiah. It is something that we will have to take offline and do a little more detail and research into that to see exactly the timing of that project. We're going forward with the CFD and the SCIP funding, so it's a moving target on Bella Vista. But that, as of right now, it would be at least in the original draft map. The city has not finalized the map. It is in scope for the annexation.
Okay, well, thank you. And I move the recommended action.
I'm going to second it and thank the sheriff for dynamically creating an agenda item to discuss annexation. And my only final comment is, if for some reason this staff doesn't think it's a workable proposal due to finances, try to work with the city to improve it. Either give them some more liabilities or give us Costco, do something to balance it out so that when it comes to us, it's something that we can seriously consider.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we have a first by Supervisor Haschak, seconded by Supervisor Williams. We'll vote by the button.
Through the chair, if I may, for the record, there was no public comment seen online.
Thank you for that. Again, we will vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Item R5, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of presentation on Mendocino County's preliminary fiscal year 26-27 budget and possible action, possible direction to staff. Again, Executive Office.
Thank you. As we move forward to 26-27, there's several unknowns that we are still concerned about. One of those is the impact of HR 1. We expect a little information, we hope, from the state on how they plan to move forward with those impacts. I believe the May revise is scheduled to come out next week on May 14th. The economic stability, whether that's local, nationally, or internationally right now, is having an impact on our budget at home as well as at the county, such as gas prices. The proposed annex, we had a brief discussion on that just now. The health plan, We're estimating to use $2.4 million of ARPA to balance the health plan for 25-26. ARPA ends this year. Since 21-22 fiscal year through 25-26, we will have used $6 million to balance the health plan. So we're very concerned on how we're going to continue that moving forward. We do know we are going to have additional jail staffing. We are budgeting for that, but we have some concerns on the stability and getting that new jail up and operational as soon as possible. And the system upgrades of what we talked about, the system upgrade that we would be looking for with the ERP, rough estimate is a 3-year project, and it's multi-million dollars. So there's several things into the future that we still need to remain good fiscal stewards on and work together on. And with that, I will turn it over to IT Director Tony Rakes as Deputy CEO.
Good morning once again, Chair Norvell, members of the board, Tony Rakes, here now with your May budget workshop for fiscal year 26-27. We'll start here with a preliminary budget overview. We currently have a non-departmental revenue available for our net county cost of $93.3 million. That excludes, or that's after the funding obligations such as fire, roads, and everything that gets transferred out before it's available for departments. So $93.3 million. What we have in our department net county cost is $95.3 million. We've identified approximately $2 million of one-time funding, 2 one-time expenses as part of this 26-27 budget, which brings us right now, as of this May budget workshop, this preliminary budget balanced with that $2 million of one-time funds to offset specifically one-time expenses. We normally aren't at that point when we come here for our May budget workshop. There's been an immense amount of work and effort that's gone into this, not only from the executive office, but from the county departments as well, which there's a slide that's a thank you to the departments, which I suppose I'll save until we get to that slide. But I wanted to highlight it here that there may be changes. As CEO Antle mentioned, there are unknowns regarding the state of our economy and rising costs and expenses. But where we are today, we have a preliminarily balanced budget that we will continue to be vetting and continue to be working on until we present the final on June 2nd. So our next slide. Here we call out what one-time expenses we've appropriated one-time funds, or we're suggesting to appropriate one-time funds for. I won't read them all to you, but I will highlight some of the bigger ones. We have some capital projects with the museum. We have capital projects for land improvement with a trash capture project, some building repairs at the Little River Airport, as well as some repairs or some structural improvements at the county jail, as well as some IT equipment, one-time IT equipment that we're expecting to purchase, in addition to additional funding for that finance system initial year project. So to combine with the $500,000 from the third quarter report, combined with a $500,000 for the next year in terms of one-time funds, puts us at $1 million for the first year projected project costs. And just to call out, acronyms are often difficult. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planner. It's referring to our finance system, Munis, and re-implementing or reimagining the way that we approach our finances and how we interact with that. There are also some short-term contracts that we have budgeted for those one-time revenues as well, or those one-time funds, that we don't expect those contracts to last over a year or short term. Moving on to the next slide, we have our remaining unrestricted fund balance.
Excuse me, sir. We do have a question. Thank you.
Yeah, if we could go back a slide, a couple questions. What is miscellaneous short-term contracts? I'm not against it. If the member of the public asks me, I have no idea what that $75,000 would be for.
Yeah, of course, if I may, through the chair. Those short-term contracts are contracts that are currently expensed out of our miscellaneous budget unit, and that includes our financial consultant, Ben Rosenfield, as well as K&N public financing contract that we do not expect to be long-term, and I believe Assistant CEO Sarah Pierce has a comment.
If I may, through the chair, it's all, so it includes our bond counsel. So the two bond counsel and K&N financing, we felt were important to have during 26, 27 as the jail project wraps up. So it's 25,000 each for each.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
I fully support this. Terrific effort, especially Ben. Some of these numbers are, 25, 50, 500,000. We don't know exactly how much, but interestingly, the new jail is $103. Is it just that the sheriff is good at estimating down to the buck, or?
If I may, through the chair, the new jail projects, it's not actually for the new jail. We probably could have worded that wrong. It's projects for the existing jail.
Yeah.
And they were completed with facilities. So yes, these are truly legitimate estimates, and there are cost escalations in there as well.
Got it. So some of these numbers are based on detailed project analysis, and then others are, generally what we think we're going to. I guess the ones that are, rounded to the nearest 1,000 are probably just ballpark. Is that fair? Okay. And then last, environmental health software implementation. What software is that?
If I may, through the chair, that's they're moving to a new electronic health record or a new environmental health software that they're moving to a Tyler product, and they're converting their old system to this new one since their old system is end of life.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Of course. Moving on to the next slide. We have here our unrestricted fund balance. We have remaining from our fiscal year 24-25 unrestricted fund balance, $6.13 million. Of that, as part of this budget workshop, we've called out $2 million that we are projecting to use, and that number, of course, may shift as we go through, as we move into June 2nd. But with the remainder, that $4.32 million left of that unrestricted fund balance, this will sound familiar, we're recommending a transfer of the remaining unrestricted fund balance from 24-25 per the new reserve, updated reserve policy, 50% to the rainy day reserve and 50% to the infrastructure and systems reserve. Again, that $4.32 million may shift and change as we work through the final month of the proposed budget, but based on where we are today as of this budget workshop, $4.32 million remaining of that unrestricted fund balance. And again, we have a footnote there, unrestricted fund balance is considered one-time funding and shouldn't be used to cover any operating expenses. We have it appropriated only for one-time expenses, or it's recommended for. And lastly here, I called it out earlier, but I think it's important to call out again, appreciation for this budget process. This budget process has been unlike the last several years in the amount of collaboration and open communication that's occurred between the budget team, the CEO's office, and the county departments. And we wouldn't be here today with the information that we have had it not been for the departments coming to the table the way that they did, and openly communicating to us about their needs and being realistic about what those are, and also on our part to be realistic about our expectations and what we need to have from them. So just a general shout out to the departments again for that. It's been a very positive experience this year working on the budget for 26-27.
I would just like to confirm what Mr. Rakes mentioned is the budget process several years ago was absolutely horrible, and everybody was fighting and everybody was trying to get their share regardless of how the other departments were doing. And I really think over the last few years we've been able to bring people together to understand the impact of one impacts all of us. And I think this board really is becoming good fiscal stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and I really appreciate that leadership. And I hope it can continue into the future. So again, appreciative of my team that have a huge lift on this. We're also working with HR Director Johnson to shore up that strategic hiring process so we can get that a little more efficient for you in 26, 27 as well. So I think you'll be happy with the report on June 2nd. And Mr. Rosenfeld will be here on that day as well. So.
Okay, questions from the board before we go to the public? Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, so looking at this remaining unrestricted fund balance and putting the 50% to the rainy day reserve and the other 50% to the infrastructure systems reserve. So the process on that, so we'd put 2.16 million to that infrastructure and systems reserve. Can you outline the process that the board would use to expend that money?
If I may, through the chair, that money can be appropriated through board action for specific projects or recommended by the CEO's office for capital projects or system enterprise-wide projects. There's the reserve policy calls out the vote required, the 4/5 vote required to pull from that reserve and to appropriate from, but is otherwise can be done as part of the budget process or throughout the year as needed, depending on projects that arise.
Okay, so at some point we'd look at that list of capital projects and prioritize them and then go down the list and approve as needed.
That is correct.
Or as possible, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more questions. We'll go to the public. Anybody in the room? No? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board. Supervisor Williams.
Move approval of the recommendations.
Second.
Okay, first by Supervisor Williams, second by Supervisor Klein. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Bearden. Apologies. We have a break scheduled for 10:30, and I'm not sure we're going to get through R6 in time, so maybe we'll take that 15-minute break now. Come back at 10:40. Thank you.
Information. You can sign up for emergency alerts. Find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map. Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit mendoready.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
It is 10:40, and we are going to move on to item R6, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation from the GGC related to delinquent cannabis business taxes. And whom from the General Government Committee would like to start?
I'd be happy to start.
Thank you.
Over the last couple of months, there's been several discussions around cannabis business tax and the best way for the County of Mendocino to try to move forward supporting those businesses. Since 2023, there has been a reduction in the tax that was paid by cultivators, and the GGC had an agenda item where we discussed the opportunities to offer additional relief, and that's included in the recommended action today. And Supervisor Hashak, did you want to add?
Yeah, this item really deals with the delinquent cannabis business taxes, and the direction of the board, the other meeting, was to try to link the business tax to make sure that there is compliance between the business tax for cannabis cultivation and the permit. And so, working with the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, the cannabis department, and lots of other people, we have this recommended plan of action. So if we wanted to go through it one by one and see if there's approval of it, each item, that might be a way of getting through this. Or we could just we could go through and approve the whole thing. So really, number one was, writing off the 2018 and 19 cannabis business taxes as uncollectible. And that's what the auditor controller says. It'd just be too difficult to even collect it. Number two is write off as uncollectible delinquent 24, 25, 2020 through 2024 cannabis business tax owed by cultivators no longer active in the program. So if they're not in the program, they owe back taxes, and it's going to be very difficult to track these people down. Okay. Number three is offer amnesty for interest and penalties for the delinquent cannabis taxes. Number four, cannabis business tax and true-ups for tax years 25 and 26 due and payable with interest and penalty if not paid timely. So that makes sure that people are up to date. And then number five, which is going to the next agenda item too, cancel the true-up minimum tax starting tax year 2027. And all cultivators pay the 2.5 starting 2027. And number six is amend the ordinance to require full cannabis business tax payment and report filing compliance for all cannabis business license renewals starting with 2028 year. So that would be what ties it in, so that you have to have your taxes paid up and to have your permit. And then the last one is all cannabis business taxes must be paid current by January 31st, 2028, and quarterly filings must be current by January 31st, 2028 for the 2028 license. So that whole plan, if we adopted it, it would get everyone, give a way of getting the delinquent taxes paid and then move us forward to where there's tax compliance, which is tied into the permit.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I appreciate the work by the committee members, and generally I'm in support. But a question about number 2 on this list. It seems like it's a little bit unfair to the people who are still in the program that they're going to pay the tax, and the people who walked away don't owe. It's almost a penalty for continuing to work with us, continuing to be legitimate and pay taxes and meet all the requirements. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that goes back to the auditor, controller, treasurer's, tax collector's recommendation saying that it would just be too hard to try to track these people down.
I understand that side of the argument, but I don't understand how we try to collect from people who are still in the program. I mean, we might have more leverage there, but we're essentially penalizing them for playing by the rules.
Supervisor Klein?
A question for Ms. Cubison. Would it be possible to outsource this kind of collection to a collections agency?
Auditor Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison. We have some concerns about that. It is not a program that was set up with the intention of being sent out to collections. So the type of information that's required to collect on people before we actually refer them to collection agencies is not something that we have collected on them in terms of social security numbers, dates of birth, other addresses. And then, part of the other issue depends on the years that you're talking about. When we're really talking about significant changes in the program, the type of documentation that's available between the cannabis program moving in different departments with different staff and what the file looks like, because we've also had cases where we've paused or delayed timing of true-ups or the notices and the payments. So, for some of these years, it's going to be very difficult. When we send it out to collection agency, we've vetted that process. We are going to need to notify the people that we're sending, that we're going to send it out. We would need to also do the legwork to establish enough information to send the file out. So it's staff's opinion that that's not really a viable option and would not be advisable, because we never intended. It wasn't like we didn't set up to actually have the information necessary to send it out to a collection agency. We did recently do a contract for unsecured taxes that are delinquent, and that collection agency has shown no interest in cannabis whatsoever, and is very specialized to deal with cannabis in terms of it's not just the same kind of collections as other industries perhaps have. So we actually aren't even aware of a collection agency that if we had collected that information for it to.
So just to clarify, your recommendation is based off of it wasn't set up to be collected, sent out to a collections agency, and there's additional staff work that would need to be done in order to make that happen.
Yes, and many of these, some of these license holders or previous license holders, they aren't even the property owner. So tracking down where they have property, are they even still in the county? There's some significant challenges. But also to being able to have vetted all of those files to refer to collection
Thank you for that context.
On recommendation number 2, the 2020 through 2024, how much money are we talking about versus how much work would it actually take to try and collect that money? I guess my question is, is it worth it to get after that money?
Well, unfortunately, once somebody is no longer in the program and they're inactivated in the system doesn't continue to generate, for instance, the interest and penalties. It's not like property tax system. It's actually just a revenue collection system that doesn't continue to account for all of that. So, we don't have exact numbers on exactly what that total amount is. And so that's part of the challenge. Every account has to be individually looked at and calculated to come up with that number.
Do you have a ballpark of how many accounts?
It's hard to say because there's kind of been transitions.
I guess my concern is probably shared a little bit with Supervisor Williams maybe, but at a different angle is, how much money are we writing off because we think it's going to be difficult to collect? Is it a lot of money? Is it 5 permit holders? Is it 55? Are we talking about $100,000 or $1 million?
It's significantly more money than that. But the problem is, again, we don't have necessarily even current information for a lot of these permit holders. they were not necessarily, in many cases, the property owner. And so tracking down these people means that we're individually tracking them down wherever they ended up. So it's not as though they were required to be the property owner. It's not the same thing as when we're talking about like property tax. Or in many cases, we even have better information on the TOT lodging establishment. So it's a considerable amount of money, but it's also money that you're looking at the older stuff. As I said, there hasn't been a perceived, at least historical, with previous leadership in the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, belief that the board wanted to pursue aggressively some of that because people were required to be participants in the program in order to get through the licensing process. And some of those people weren't cultivating yet. They still had to pay the minimums in order to be in the program to be licensed. So, you know, there's information that is difficult to quantify because once we inactivate the people and stop trying to collect from people who are not active, it isn't, like I said, accounting for that anymore in a distinguishable manner.
Okay, and I'm just going to try and again narrow you down on the dollar amount. I said $1 million, you said considerably more than that. Do you have a ballpark?
Let's see. I don't know that I have a number. It's a lot of money. And we don't deem it collectible. So it could be $1 million, it could be $2 million.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Haschak.
Well, just to go on to kind of hone in on that a little bit more. So these people that aren't in the system anymore and they owe these back taxes, there's nothing that would, like, it's not tied to land or anything, right? We can't put a lien on their land for these taxes, can we?
Well, if we can determine that we can find that they have assets that we can pursue assets, but we then have to determine who else has also claimed to that. What are the lien holders already in first position on those properties? Do we expect that we're actually going to get any money from pursuing that?
Right.
So, you know, that's a lot of time that what we're talking about is directing staff away, for instance, from collecting TOT, directing staff away from, you know, collecting other taxes that we can reasonably assume we'll be able to collect.
Right. It seemed like one of the discussions we had was like, are there bigger fish to fry?
Certainly.
Right. Is it, where's the bang for our buck in our, you know, tax collecting office?
Yeah, and I understand that, but I don't know how big the buck is at this point. That's my concern. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd like to know that number, but I think what Auditor Controller is telling us is it's deemed uncollectible. So it doesn't matter if it's 1 million or 10 million. If we can't collect it, what are we doing spending staff time and public money going after it? But I'm still back on the lack of fairness that if we're going to let some people off because they're hard to track down, but we're going to go after other people who are playing by the rules, doesn't set well. Seems like it should be a level playing field. Whatever rule we decide applies to everyone for that year.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Did you, Supervisor Klein?
In line with Supervisor Williams' comments, I'm really struggling around this issue because I see us playing ping pong so often, shifting the goalposts back and forth. It seems like we're really letting folks off the hook when they haven't tried to play by the rules and holding other folks to a high standard. We've had multiple instances where previous boards have had tax relief. I just am really feeling unsettled by the situation we're finding ourselves in.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I joined this board in 2021, and I think that the goalposts for cannabis have been ever shifting. And I think also for me, during this time period when we were looking at cannabis business tax reductions, the cannabis program, I would say, existed, but not was up and running in the way that it is now. So the people that were in program 2020 through 2024, Many of them did not make it through program, but also their expectations and the follow-up with the county was very inconsistent and unclear. And I think that that helped me make my decision to bring forward that, yeah, this is probably not something we're going to collect on, because those people maybe have moved or no longer are in the cannabis industry. So I think that that's, another thing is that the county, was shifting the goalposts at that time.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I think that the goalposts have changed because the world has changed and the cannabis industry has changed, and we're dealing with a very different set of situation. Economically, the situation has changed dramatically over the last half a dozen years, and now we're even looking at federal changes that could really affect the industry. And so, luckily we have around 600 people who are still in the program. We're just dealing with about 200 that haven't been paying their taxes. We're trying to clean that up and set the program off into a very clear direction. And I think that with the number 2, the people that are uncollectible, as deemed by the treasurer tax collector, it's a different situation, because why do we pursue these people if it's deemed uncollectible? And the cannabis growers I've talked to who are saying, let's just move on, let's go forward, and we still got a lot of issues to deal with as far as the cannabis issues, the taxes as is, and so that's why I think that I support number 2 is just it's a reality of what we're dealing with.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, so number 5 I think is a really great idea, canceling the minimum tax. Fun fact, I had an agenda item for this. It was the first agenda item I ever wrote in 2019. And executive office came to me and said, your colleagues won't support you on this, and staff has already budgeted the dollars that this represents. And it became clear it wasn't going to go anywhere. But at the time, the thinking was the county hadn't even figured out the CEQA story, what site-specific review meant. We were going to have people paying a tax who wouldn't have income. And I think this tax was envisioned in an economy where the licensed cultivators were getting old illicit market prices. And you look at what they're doing today, they're basically poor farmers. And I have a lot of respect for farmers, but they're basically poor farmers that are trying to make ends meet, pay their property tax, and get by. The idea that we would tax somebody $10,000, which could represent 50% tax rate, 100% tax rate, it could be that we're charging more tax than their yield for that year, given circumstances. We wouldn't do it to any other business. Imagine if we applied this to some other business in our county or your district. We'd have this room packed with people talking about the unfairness. And that's where we are. This never should have happened. So I'm really behind number 5. One thing that's not on this list is I do think the tax should be applied to all cultivation, whether or not it's permitted and licensed. We have a lot of cultivation in this county today that's not part of the program, and it's an unfair business practice that they're not contributing, not playing by the rules, and not getting a bill from the county. I think we know where they are. We should send everyone a bill.
Supervisor Moher.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around being in favor of 5 and not 2, because the people that were delinquent for that tax, like you said, may not have even made a profit or made even any income to get to the required true up. So I'm just unclear as to why you would be in favor of one and not the other.
May I? Please. Yeah, so I'm not against number 2. I just think that it should be broadened, equal protection. That if you're going to let some people off, you let everybody off, because there's people who are still in the program that had crop loss, weren't generating income, had the exact same circumstance, and they're going to be held to paying the tax. But there's other people who walked away, and we're going to say, well, it's hard to collect from them, let them go. I think it should be, out of general fairness, give everyone the same deal. If you're going to let people off in 2020, let them all off, whether or not they're still in the program.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, looking at number 4, is that in my conversation with the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, we could get rid of the true-ups, this is my understanding, for 2026. And just move on to the new, because we're in the middle of 2026 and those true-ups won't come due until 2027, April of next year. And so we could just eliminate the true-up for 2026.
Do we have a dollar amount for what Supervisor Haschak is talking about?
Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Shamice Cubison. So we did send out $1.3 million of true-up for 2025 this month. Based on previous experience, they've been paying roughly 50% of the true-up.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, one last point. If we're looking at this through the lens of how much can we extract, it's short-sighted because in the process we may put farms under, and then we don't get anything from them in the future. And today what we get from them is their sales tax. They're buying stuff in the local economy. They're putting people to work. They're paying their property tax bill. I think we need to broaden our analysis to what happens if we put the industry under. There's greater ramifications financially for the county. And so I'm with Supervisor Haschak. I'm not against considering 2026 as well. I think we should collect the tax on what they actually sold. But as far as minimum tax, if they didn't sell enough to hit that threshold, I don't know that we want to give them a higher effective tax rate.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. And you're finished?
Here to answer questions.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the public. Anybody in the room?
Hello, good morning, Stephen Amato, Mendocino Cannabis Alliance. We ran into the same issue at the GGC that the next item is really kind of very intertwined with this one, especially the recent conversation that the board was having about the minimum tax. So I'm going to save my thoughts on that for that portion. And just say in general, there's a lot of difficulty. It took a lot for me to wrap my head around. I've been in multiple industries and businesses, and this is one of the most unique taxes that I've ever seen, especially the collection methods when I really read through the outline. And it's been a very tough job for the tax collector to go by those guidelines. I still did not hear whether or not there was an opinion on whether licensure can be tied to non-payment of taxes for renewal or not. I think that's a very big component towards these collection methods. In general, I agree with them. I unfortunately, as a person who did pay and paid in a year where I had major crop loss and still paid my taxes up to date, don't feel it's necessarily equitable or fair, but then you can start going down that rabbit hole. If there's some folks you can go after because they own property and you can get and put liens on them, what about the folks that didn't have anything and just like left? Now is that fair to them? It just keeps going on and on. And it just with the way it was written and how difficult it is because it's a voter initiative, I think we do need to maybe try to come up with some logical paths forward and just accept, what we can get, what we can't get. I'd really love to see the folks that are still in the system have the clearest pathway to get up to date by 2028. I think that is a beautiful way that was put out and written, that let's try to get everyone on board. Let's get a really good way to move forward. I'll be making more comments about that in the next agenda item that I feel will also help for the folks who are, up to date and been doing the right thing and such. And it's very difficult unless you want to really sit down and read through this whole tax thing and really try to scratch your head to understand what was thought of when it was put out as a voter initiative. I mean, I'll say it on record, I personally voted against it because I just felt it just wasn't written properly. A minimum tax, not knowing what your sales would be, not even knowing what your license stature, situation was going to be at that time. It's just compounded to where we are today of all these folks who just left delinquently. But I would really like to know whether or not we could legally put some teeth into this so that folks who want to keep their licenses pay their taxes. whether that's legal or not. Otherwise, this is going to be difficult ongoing, and we're going to probably be costing the county more money than we might end up collecting in it, and I don't think that's a road we want to go down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Klein, 3rd District. I live in Willitson Farm in Covelo. This is a real tough topic, but I agree with the delinquent side of it for 18 and 19. Just eliminate all of it. 20 to 24, eliminate anybody that's no longer in the program. Just let it go. Those that are in the program, they should have their interest and penalties eliminated. Reduce whatever's in 2024, 20 to 2024 down to 50%. Keep 25 and 26 as is, eliminating the 26 true up and a moratorium for 27 for all those people to get up to date back to 2.5 in 2028 for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Matthew Browning, 3rd District. I have my family farm, Mendo Mystic, in Willits, and then I also run a website that I work with about 50 other small cultivators here within the county. And the general idea is that they're struggling. This minimum tax has hurt them quite a bit. And in general, I echo what Steve and both Marty have said. Any help that we can get helps us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing one online, Carrie Val.
Hi. I'm Carrie Val.
Unfortunately, Carrie, you are echoing, and that is something that is with your microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're still echoing. Maybe if you could turn your volume down.
Okay.
Or if you're watching the meeting on a separate device, that could be where the echo is coming from.
How about now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that it seems like it's still echoing. I don't know what's happening here, but if you can hear me, I'm just going to say that next people that are going to be in front of you will be all of the vineyard owners, because right now we're in a bad spot and we're paying business tax to the county on equipment and so forth. And so don't be surprised if you give up on this tax for the cannabis growers that we'll be next in line asking for the same thing. So that's my recommendation, is that you don't get rid of this tax and you go look at those that owe more on the tax and maybe have a baseline that you're going to go collect with, or go to those that may still own property. It's the same thing as a landlord-tenant relation. When they owe you, you can take them to small claims court. In your case, you have a better way to collect. You can get judgments against them. It could be garnished against wages. If they do own the real estate, it could be secured against the real estate. And when they do sell the property, it would be paid out of escrow and collected and given to the county. So I think you should not let all of it go. There will be some that you will need to, but draw the line of what is feasible to go forward, and keeping in mind that the next folks that will be before your doors looking for a reduction or waiver of these taxes will be people in the vineyard business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments online.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the board. Mulhern?
Thank you. I think that one of the differences with this cannabis business tax that I just like to remind the board was that this was a voter initiative, and voters approved that this tax be implemented on cultivators. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the legalization that was just occurring at the time when this went to the voters. And then, of course, we still have a considerable amount of stigma against cannabis businesses. So just as we've been weighing this item and the next item, that has been on my mind, that there, is still a lot of concern from other business owners and the community around cannabis as a business. And, I think, again, one of the major reasons that I agreed with the auditor controller's recommended action was the inability to collect the tax. And if the board members have an alternate motion, of course, I would be happy to consider that.
Yeah, I just have one question, Supervisor. Maybe you can clarify this for me on number 2. These people that owe this tax could be people that started business and never had a harvest. Great. Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
I think Haschek may have been ahead of me.
Supervisor Haschek?
Well, I'm going to move the recommended action with one change in number 5 is to cancel the true-up minimum tax starting tax year 2026.
Second. And I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Was that Carrie Vall?
It was.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with her or others who say there should be parity, that, if you give one business a deal, you got to give it to others. I agree with that philosophy. I don't think the county has been clear because the taxation is so complicated. It was a voter initiative, the language, all the hurdles and, the drama of 21 times the board discussed cannabis in 2021. For the general public to understand that we're moving towards parity, that vineyards pay an unsecured tax on their farm equipment. Cannabis cultivators are going to pay that as well. They're not getting off the hook for any of their property tax. This is a tax that nothing like this has been applied to any other business. It would be like having a minimum tax for the grape growers, that we're going to tax them a set dollar amount irrespective if they have a harvest that year. So it's not that I don't think we're giving any special arrangement to one sector. I think we're bringing that sector into alignment with how we treat every other business.
And so we do have a first and a second, but I have a question on the motion. The number 5, the true up, what if we forgive that? What's the dollar amount there?
Auditor Controller Treasurer Tax Collector Shamice Cubison, are you referring to starting with 2026?
Yes.
So it is difficult to know exactly how much, because part of what we're also asking is there to be a requirement to file the quarterly returns. We're going to be working on trying to develop a process to confirm those reported amounts. So we don't know whether everybody who is paying a true-up could possibly be somebody who isn't filing with their gross receipts and is just paying the true-up. So we don't know how to quantify how much they would be paying if they were paying strictly on gross receipts and reporting it, as opposed to filing through the true-up process, because you have to have hit a certain threshold in gross receipts to owe that equivalent amount, and obviously it's been reduced for the last couple of years. The overall tax rate has been reduced. So unfortunately, being able to quantify exactly how much that means we're giving up or foregoing is difficult, especially, as I said, because we haven't even been charging the full 2.5% or the full true-up amount for the last, couple of years, because we've reduced it. The board has already taken action to reduce it. So we don't know exactly how much that's going to be. We know that what we just sent out the bills for is 1.3 million at the already reduced rate, for which we normally collect 50%. So I can't say whether or not it's going to be 600,000. I don't know that, unfortunately. Because we have roughly between 45 and 50% who don't file their quarterly returns. So we don't know. So many of them, we just send the true up minimum. We didn't get anything from them. We have no idea what their gross receipts were. They're just paying the minimum.
Okay, and then I guess my last question would be, I don't see Mr. Rakes in the room anymore, but so Ms. Antle, for giving all this money, I don't know, what does this do for items R4 and R5? Or maybe specifically R5?
If I understood Ms. Cubison, she hasn't accounted for the dollars, and so I don't think they're included in the budget projections.
If I may, I do believe we've probably budgeted 1.4 million again for 26,
26, 27, but not the true up.
No, we have
Not
not.
the true
Well,
up.
we haven't, well, that includes whatever portion is the true up. We don't know from year to year what portion is going to be the true up. So there could be an impact to 26, 27. For the revenue, we will be collecting for 26. That depends. So if you're getting rid of the 26 true up, that is revenue that we would be getting in 26, 27, correct? So it could be 600,000, might not be, because like I said, you would be going to the full 2.5% for everybody, right? No, it's not. So I'm sorry, 26 is still a reduced rate year.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I just want to note, we have a track record and history of doing these amnesty programs, wiping the slate clean, doing tax reductions. I just think this really sends the wrong message to the public. We have a culture where it's okay to not follow the rules, it's okay to not pay your taxes. I understand that there is a need to update the tax system for cannabis. It is an extremely complicated, ineffective system, so I don't want to disrespect that portion of it, but I just generally disagree with the way that the county has handled these kinds of issues, and culturally, we're just allowing folks to pick and choose what they follow.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I would disagree with that depiction of this, because what we're trying to do is really tie in the cannabis taxes with the permit. So when we do that, we will have a clear path forward that you're either in the program or you're not in the program. You're either paying your taxes or you're not paying your taxes. And so this will clear it up. And I think that going back to that question about what will be the fiscal impact, I totally agree with the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, is that one of the things that is so difficult about this true-up issue is that we don't know what the actual impact will be of moving to this other model, but we do know that the other model is what everyone else is using to pay their taxes. And so it's really just aligning it with the standard industry practice, standard taxation practice, and then making sure that we can account for people's gross receipts. So that, for me, is the process I see.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
I disagree with some of the comments that have been made. Again, we're in a situation where the real problem are the folks who aren't pursuing having a license, who pay nothing into the tax. We have zero enforcement around those folks. What efforts are the counties making to collect taxes on folks who are not legal operators? To my knowledge, there's none, because there's no mechanisms to go out and do that. So that's the real crux of the problem.
Supervisor Williams.
Well, I'm happy to support Supervisor Klein, either as part of this effort, if you want to amend it, or bring back a different item. But my previous talks with a different county council highlighted that the county could send bills to all cultivators, that this tax was not passed referencing participants in our permitted and licensed system. And you have my support on that. I think it's unfair. We have some people in the room that are honest, have been paying their taxes against all struggles. They're still in business. We should be recognizing them and taxing the people who haven't played by the rules.
Yeah, quick question for county council. Can we tax an illegal activity?
So I understand my predecessor has stated that, and so the answer is, I suppose, yes, but then you're sort of giving it recognition. I think it would be hard. I mean, if they're operating illegally, frankly, they should be shut down. I know that the state is providing more and more funds. There's grants out there in terms of, I know we were using them in Nevada County to go and shut down the illegal grows, which are a large part of what's hurting the industry. I mean, if you're trying to do it right, you're trying to come in, you're trying to comply, and you're competing against persons that are not doing any of those things, then that would be, I would say, more bang for your buck doing that and getting the message out that that's not going to be allowed. And this, again, the state is recognizing that and giving more grants to counties to go after these illegal grows.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Williams.
When the people passed this tax, they didn't condition it on having a permit or a license. They said if there's cannabis cultivation on a parcel, it's to be taxed. So I don't, the argument that we're taxing illegal activity, I would call it undocumented. The county could send a bill, say you forgot to get your permit, you need to work on that immediately and halt until you do, and here's your bill.
To respond, I agree that would be allowable if we know somebody's starting something but they don't have a permit and they're not complying with everything. That would be a possibility. So,
And that is also something. I mean, we could get through this agenda item and bring that subject back as a different agenda item, whether or not we want to go after those illegal grows with tax. Correct?
that's correct. Or give direction to.
I mean, I think it's a worthy discussion. I don't have an issue with it. Yes, Ms. Antle.
Chair, if I may, to your prior question, we had a second to take a look at what we budgeted. We budgeted $1.4 million, and 65% of that is typically from true-ups. So just based on that alone, we would be losing close to $900,000 to $1 million. Now, what the revenue on the 2.5, I don't think that comes in 27. Shamise, can you help me with the true up?
Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Shamise Cubison.
I'm not following all the dates, sorry.
Yeah, so 2026 is still reduced rate. But I guess my point is that I don't believe that when we say the true-up is 65%, that we get rid of the true-up, that means we're going to collect nothing. Those people are still going to be required to report and pay what their gross receipts were. It's likely less than what they would have paid, but I believe there should still be receipts from those people who are paying the true-up, unless every one of them truly is going to report zero.
The supervisor has checked.
I think one of the issues is that people aren't paying their quarterly on gross receipts because they know they have to pay that true up at the end, so they kind of wait and then just pay the true up all at once. And so it's not like we would lose all that money potentially, We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns with this, but that's one way of looking at it. But if we're ready, I would call the question.
Supervisor Williams, did you have a question? I thought your pen was up. No? Okay. Well, I thought it was up before that. That's fine. Okay, we will, so, Ms. Bearden, could you read the motion again for me?
From what I have, it is the recommended action with the change being to number 5. The only change being to number 5, cancel true-up minimum tax sharing tax year 2026 instead of that 2027. And then all cultivators pay 2.5% starting 2027.
All right, we'll vote by the button. We need to change our motion, yes?
Well,
Excuse I'm sorry,
Please.
I may through the chair. So 26 is already a reduced rate year for all payers. So be conscious of and some people
Okay.
have already paid for their first quarter. So you need to make a conscious decision if what you're doing is saying, we're going to reduce the true up, but we're going to restore the rate to 2.5% for 2026.
No, that's not what we want to do.
So you're saying
yeah.
that we're doing the reduced rate for everybody in 2026 with no true up.
Right. And then all cultivators pay the 2.5 starting 2027. So it is correctly stated.
All right, we'll vote by the button.
The motion carries with Supervisor Norvell and Supervisor Klein dissenting.
Thank you. And the only reason I voted against that, I'm 100% in support of everything that's written here. It's just the, we made a big deal today, and I think rightly so, about our budget. And then here in this item, we added on more. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I just disagree. There's a lot of unknowns about exactly how much money that we're giving back. So that's my only concern. I don't want the people to think that I'm against all of this, because I'm not. So we will move on to item R7, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation from the General Government Committee to direct staff to develop an ordinance to eliminate the minimum cannabis business tax effective tax year 27, further allowing the expiration of temporary cannabis business tax decrease, which began in 2023, with future cannabis taxes due at 2.5% of sales as per county code. Again, this is a General Government Committee. Supervisor Mulhern.
Sure, I can start. As I had mentioned with the other item, the General Government Committee heard several cannabis business tax related items, and this item removes the true up amount and requires that in the future cannabis business taxes are at 2.5% moving forward. Supervisor Hashak?
Yeah, this certainly is in line with what we just did about removing the true up, and it's one of the issues is, the 2.5, it has been reduced, 50%, and then we moved it to 40% and then 35% this year, and it's something that probably with the state of the 600 permitted business cannabis cultivators in this county, not doing that well, it could be reconsidered in the future, reduction. But at least this is the structure we have, and it provides a tax collector with a straightforward method of collecting taxes, which is easier to do.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Mulhern.
During the GGC meeting, there was conversations around whether or not this cannabis business tax could continue to be changed and if it could have reductions in the future. And the answer is yes, it can. I think my concern is that, again, the goalposts keep moving. And what I said during the meeting, I still believe today that while I understand that the minimum true up tax did not work for cultivators, especially as the market shifted and they were unable to meet their, gross receipts to make that really a viable part of their business, especially for very small cultivators. My concern is that we'll continue to leave this door open to changing the tax. And I think that that's, again, an uneven playing field for the people that are participating in the legal system. So I think that if the board moves forward, we should continue without the minimum tax at 2.5% and not change it again and not have a reduction. And of course, legal counsel will tell us that we can't tie the hands of other future boards and anything could change, but I just think that setting an expectation that it will be changed or reduced in the future further encourages people to not comply with the tax, which is, part of the question that some of my colleagues had.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions, and staff have anything to add to this? No? We'll go to the public.
Hello, Stephen Amato, President of Mendocino Cannabis Alliance again. We're in agreement. All our cultivators have wanted to move away from the true-up, so we appreciate that that was done on the last item and it's being reconsidered. And just speaking with many cultivators and such, they are a little bit apprehensive that now that even though that's being lifted, they're actually going to be getting charged more next year at a time when they're still struggling, things are still distressed, and there's still issues. Now, I'm a property owner, live here in the county myself. I like nice roads. We all do. We all need it. I know that there's a ballot measure this year that's to increase taxes in order to fix our roads and such. But I really just like the board to really consider and think about what I'm about to say here. We need to really consider revenue preservation in this topic. If we're going to be pushing folks towards getting up to date by 2028, otherwise you're going to get your license revoked. That's a real major threat to removing licensed operators who may just be struggling, might just be a little bit short. I still don't even know what that process really is going to involve. I hope there's going to be at least a hearing or something to give folks the opportunity to discuss what's going on in their particular situation. Also, the federal landscape is changing right now as we speak. A few weeks ago, medical cannabis was rescheduled. That's showing to prove that there's going to be opportunities outside the California market for some of our cultivators. The Department of Cannabis Control just made major movements to allow people to change their license type from recreational to medical to try to get on board with that. There's hearings set in June that are really looking towards moving towards cannabis as abroad that might potentially push the needle and deregulate towards federalization that our farmers could really benefit from. They're not going to be able to do that right now, but maybe for next year or the year after that. So I'm going to propose one more reduction. I know it sucks, but one more reduction, just one time shot of like all the folks that have been paying up to date, doing their job. One standing here right in front of you, paying all our dues, taking our knocks, taking our licks, no matter what our crop loss was, to have 1 year of 0%. It's going to allow folks who fell behind to hopefully catch up and get their bills paid up to date. And then it's just, that's the expectation. You're getting your one more break, and then it's going to go to the 2.5% on a receipt-based system. And if federalization does come around, I feel like that will be a lot easier for the tax collector to see those receipts, because people are going to be filing their taxes properly. It's going to start getting more normalized. Right now, it's very difficult. This whole nonsense with the minimum, who's actually going to pay, what are they actually going to declare. Just want to make one comment about going after the illegal folks like that. They don't have receipts. So I don't know what bill the county would even send them. Just hit them in another way. Just think, like I'm all in favor of like they are competing with us and having a massive unfair advantage. But I think we really should start thinking, do we want to invest in our county? And giving our growers at this conjuncture where things are starting to change on the landscape. Just want to say one last thing. I know I'm over time. Humboldt County has reduced theirs down to 0. Sonoma County just a few days ago has reduced theirs down to 0. Do we want to be the county where investors are looking less at us because we have a higher tax rate for this? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Maher.
Thank you. I just wanted to note for the record, because that's come up in other topics, that those reductions were for 1 year and then they're going to revisit. So I don't want for people to think that that was a blanket reduction for.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Marty Klein, 3rd District. I agree with Steve. I paid my taxes from the beginning, and being able to move into 27 without having that burden on a wholesale product that we're selling is a lot of money. Last year I billed just over $90,000, driving all over the state, selling my own product, doing my own deliveries through distribution companies and metric properly, and 2.5% of that is just too much on a wholesale product we're already losing money on. So I would agree that letting everybody catch up in 27 and getting to a new playing field January 1st, 2028 it would be parity with the other counties around us, and it'd make this farmer feel a whole lot better to move into 27. I want to stay in cannabis. I love cannabis. I just got an award yesterday for the Mendo Cup, so anything you do would be helpful.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Browning, 3rd District. I'm just here to echo mostly, I agree with what Steve and Marty said. Any help that we can get to catch up, you know, that's one of the, I guess, what we want out of this. And yeah, we're just struggling as a category of small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, anyone online?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay. Back to the board. I do have a question for the committee. Did you guys have a discussion about reducing the tax again? Talk about that, if you would.
We did, and I think that we disagreed on whether or not we would support that. And that was part of the conversation that we had. And like I stated with the last item, for me, this is about the entire community of Mendocino County, what their expectations were of how the county would operate the cannabis program, how we would handle illegal operators, which we've had not a lot of success at. I think that as we look at future taxes and going to the voters to ask them to pay taxes, it's hard for me to wrap my head around a voter initiative that was passed by the community and then to have the board change that. While I understand we can legally do that, I think that for me as an elected official, it's a question of I'm changing their original intention and then coming and asking the entire community to pay more as well. So that's where I was, and I think Supervisor Hashak and I disagreed on that, and we thought we'd bring it to everybody to have the conversation.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah. 2.5% doesn't sound like much. I think, is your business viable if you can't afford a 2.5% tax? But this is on sales, right? This is on gross. And so, you know, imagine you have a fishing business, you bring in $1 million of fish and you have $1 million of expenses. You didn't walk away with any profit, and then here comes government to say we want a big tax on that. Kind of what we're doing here. So I can see the perspective of some of these farms are struggling to stay in business. And, you know, now that we're making it a requirement that they catch up in order to keep the license, what happens if they can't pay it? Not that they don't want to, or that they're prioritizing other business expenses, but they just can't pay it. So we boot them out of the program. Now we don't ever get any revenue from them. We have a property that, you know, may not pay property tax in the future. Again, this is a tax that we don't apply to any other business. This is really unique that we thought this was so lucrative. And I think, you know, voters at the time didn't understand how bleak the future would be for cannabis farmers. And so all of this seemed reasonable. In 2026, going into 27, I don't think it's reasonable. I think that we're part of the driving force in putting these businesses under, and that's not helping our bottom line.
Supervisor Hashak?
Well, I agree with both the comments previously stated, you know, that the people did vote for this tax and had expectations of it, but times have changed, and you know the situations for the cannabis industry, it's not as lucrative as it used to be. And so it's like, how do we keep these 600 who are in the permit program, you know, viable as, you know, businesses, as families that, you know, are just struggling to maintain. And so, you know, we have been giving a break, you know, 50%, then 40, then 35. So I guess I would look at what if we decrease that 2.5 down to 2%? And that would be something like 25%, 20% reduction. So, you know, I could see that. You know, I don't see it moving to zero because I don't think that there's a will on the board to do that. And we do have a budget to, you know, balance. But if we moved it to 2.0, then it would be something to move forward with.
Okay. More?
My question, I guess, is 2.0 moving forward or 2.0 for 1 year? I don't understand that.
Well, it would be moving forward because I heard from you that you didn't want to keep revisiting this all the time. So, 2.0 would kind of be like a compromise position. Because right now at the 35%, it's probably closer to 1.6 or 7 or something like that.
So you're suggesting reducing the 2.5 to 2% in perpetuity?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I could support that. I would certainly entertain the idea of a reduced tax, but I don't think I would. Certainly not reducing it permanently.
Well, then, what would you reduce it to for 1 year?
I don't know what I would reduce. I mean, maybe the 0.5% like you talked about. I don't know that I heard, maybe it was brought up in the GGC about what they would recommend it gets reduced to. If you said it today, I apologize, I don't recall it, but did you guys discuss a number when you were in the committee?
Not that I recall. I recall discussing removing the true up and whether or not we could have it be nothing, or if there would be another percentage reduction like we've done in the past. But I think I have the concern, as I mentioned, just around taxes and voter initiatives in general, and how this board or future boards upholds the will of the public in that way.
Yeah, and and probably for me, it's going to be a struggle not knowing, suggesting a reduction without knowing what the fiscal impact again is. And again, I go back to our 2 agenda items today where we were, basically patting ourselves on the back for getting to where we are now, and then here we are again talking about reductions. So I'm not going to make a motion to reduce the tax. I do support what is here, 100%. I don't have an issue with it, but that's where I stand. Supervisor Haschek.
Well, with that, I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay. First by Haschek, seconded by Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries with Supervisor Klein dissenting.
Okay, and then Ms. Antle, do we have anything timed and closed today? Can we boogie right through the rest of these?
Yeah, you can keep going, and then we'll get into close when you're done. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to go, the CEO report has been withdrawn. We have, I believe, nothing under ledge platform, correct? All right, so we'll go to R10, Supervisor Reports. I'll go real quick. I did attend the Casper Community Breakfast. Met with the owners of the water system and their plans. They want to expand. It sounds like the community needs them to expand, or at least do something different to get water to everybody. They've got some rezoning ambitions in order to do some of the stuff, and at this point I'm in support of what they're up to, and I told them so. The homeless ad hoc met with Dr. Miller last week, and what I would consider a fruitful conversation, talking about a different approach to street level homelessness. We actually found a program the county ran before that was quite beneficial to the outcomes that we're after. The annexation ad hoc had a meeting with staff and the city of Ukiah Thursday of last week, where the city proposed a new map to be considered. We did talk a little bit about that today. And then I was one of the ones with Supervisor Klein in the CEO's office who got a tour of the new behavioral health wing of the jail. We look forward to that opening. I think they're hoping August. And then lastly, McCavan is still collecting needles. If you find needles, please call McCavan House, 707-462-1932, or you can call Joe Ditto directly, 707-727-0402. And in regard to that, they have been reporting out that they are getting some calls because they are advertising it too, and they have been doing some cleanups. So, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you. I know we've spent some time talking about annexation, but do want to report a little bit on my perspective. The city did reach out to the county, the city of Ukiah specifically, to discuss their larger annexation proposal and restart the conversation after the previous iteration of the proposal from April of 2025 was withdrawn earlier in the fall. The tone of the meeting was better than previous interactions. Since the city did not feel comfortable sharing the map or associated information ahead of time, the first time we were seeing that information was in the meeting. Within an hour of that meeting ending, the city did launch their information with the public and announced a public workshop for the following week. That did take me a little bit by surprise because the city wasn't clear in the meeting about when the information would be shared with the public. I attended the first part of the public meeting. I did see quite a bit of resistance from the public, but I think that the breakout room format that was utilized made the sharing of information difficult. And so I hope folks can be willing to hear the city out, but still feel comfortable voicing their opinion in a civil manner. We do not have the APN numbers for the properties as was already reported, so some of the detailed financial analysis we need has not yet started. The city also indicated that this map is not finalized, so according to the master tax sharing agreement, there will need to be additional conferences between the city and the county around the final map. At RCRC's executive committee meeting, we had Director Carla Nemeth from Department of Water Resources come and speak with us. We had a very candid conversation around the state water plan that was mandated by SB 72, and also how the 2014 water bond has resulted in 0 new water storage in our state 12 years after its passage. The state desperately needs permitting solutions to make storage and infrastructure upgrades possible. I've also continued to push for SGMA reform, especially for small groundwater basins with medium priorities such as ours, and I think that the director indicated that they're open to some of that work. The Community Foundation hosted a meeting on spay and neuter across the county, and I appreciated the invitation to participate in the conversation. The Animal Care Director, Amy Campbell, was also in attendance, along with representatives from the coast and inland nonprofits and private animal practices alike. Their long-term goal is to have a county veterinarian, and short-term solutions were discussed to support the spay and neuter program. I'm really excited what can happen from these kinds of conversations and appreciated the very collaborative format. Residents from Redwood Valley reached out to me concerned about the development of the low-intensity camping ordinance. They had a lot of questions, so we met with planning and building staff to discuss in greater detail, and planning and building staff will also be coming to the next Redwood Valley Municipal Advisory Council to share a little bit of information and answer questions about the process. And just for the public's awareness, that ordinance is in development, not expected until the end of the year, and there will be lots of opportunities for public input. At the next Board of Supervisors meeting, we'll be hearing from Faisal Gas Station. That appeal will come back for, of course, Redwood Valley right off of 101 at the base of the grade. I have been spending quite a bit of time at the site and with neighbors, hearing their concerns. I think this will be a different conversation at the 19th. Appreciate the Sheriff's Office for the tour of the new behavioral health wing of the jail. It's going to provide some safety improvements and programming in line with the state's recommendations. That concludes my report.
Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, I attended a meeting in Brook Trails, and one of the issues was the emergency access routes that we've supported in the past. And it turns out that the MOUs, some of the new owners of land on those roads are reluctant to sign it. So I think Brook Trails Board was energized to reach out to those homeowners, landowners, and get those MOUs in place. MTA, we're working on, Mendocino Transit Authority, we're working on the budget. I appreciate the League of Women Voters for their candidate forums throughout the county. Sonoma Clean Power, I appreciate their work, working with Supervisor Williams and myself, and looking forward to more discussions since the ad hoc has been approved. I attended the Round Valley History Day, and that's such a great event it's a community event where people bring their history, their family history, and also the history of the schools and the Indian schools and everything to the Methodist Church up there, and share that in a real communal way. It's just a great event. So if anyone has a chance to do it, it's usually in May. And they also had William Bauer, who's a professor of Native American history at the University of California in Riverside, and he's from Covelo, and gave a talk about the history of Covelo and logging practices. So that was very informative and well done. Otter Valley Project, there's a lot of discussion about that in my district, and overall, especially with regards to this Lake Elsinore Water District proposal, or whatever they're doing. And there's certainly a lot of concern of people, to maintain water for Mendocino County. Keep it here, keep control, and that's always what this board has represented, was local control over these kind of issues, especially water. The GGC met last month, and appreciate the work we did on it today, some of those issues. And then the First Five had a meeting in Laytonville, and we heard about the family resource centers up there in Laytonville, but also Jameis Shields Spence, who is the coordinator for all the family resource centers in the county. And just hearing about the issues that they're facing and the struggle that they have, especially with HR 1 and those issues coming forward, greater needs of people in our communities. So really appreciate the work they did, and First Five and the work they do with all of the children and families in our county. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I'll try not to be duplicative for my colleagues. We often attend the same meetings. Had talked about the General Government Committee. We brought those items forward. I attended the Great Redwood Trail grand opening for Phase 4. About 45 people participated in the first ever Ukiah Great Redwood Trail fun run, 3 miles. And I thought it was great to see so many younger people that are in fitness coaching, and a new running organization, Mindo Milers, come out for that. I think it's really important for our community to see the Great Redwood Trail as not only an opportunity for active transportation, but for recreation and for healthy activities. So that was a nice, there was also a ribbon cutting. Senator McGuire was there, members from the City Council, and Supervisor Hashak to introduce the public to the trail. And there were, I would say I spoke to about 10 people that had never used it before and used it for the first time that day. And I'm always happy and willing to walk on the trail with anybody that hasn't used it. If they have questions or concerns, I'm happy to meet with them and walk on the trail. I met with the new interim director of Visit Mendocino to hear an update about what they're working on, and really just want to continue to highlight for anybody in the tourism industry. The Mendocino Coast did wonderfully making a name for themselves during the shelter-in-place pandemic when COVID and people couldn't travel out of the country. I think that's amazing. Inland, we've not had the same opportunities, and outdoor recreation is really, in my opinion, one of our best next steps, and that includes the Russian River, Lake Mendocino, and the Great Redwood Trail, and also just highlighting outdoor recreation with mountain biking and motocross, and the opportunities that we have with federal lands in our community, and really trying to keep that top of mind, that we capture some of those things that are already happening, the grasshopper race, other races that are happening in our community for our tourism industry, so people are staying in the hotels and also dining and shopping. We had a LAFCO meeting yesterday. Supervisor Klein is also on the LAFCO board. We heard the first introduction of the Point Arena municipal service review and sphere of influence study, and that'll come back to the LAFCO board, but I just think it's important that there were a lot of questions around how Point Arena was doing. Some of those were answered yesterday. Folks can read that agenda item or watch those videos on YouTube. It's on the Mendocino LAFCO website. And MCOG also met and had discussions about the future housing needs numbers, and the numbers for Mendocino County are just astronomical, how much housing we need here, and that is, you know, something that all of our municipalities are challenged with, making sure we have enough services, water, sewer, police, fire, but also really how our planning and building departments are working on navigating, making building housing as easy and quick as possible. And we've struggled with that as a board. I mean, the conversation about Bella Vista was brought up, and that is a project that was originally approved in 2008. And although there's been many challenges, first, you know, economic, financial viability, change in ownership, there's been a lot of challenges, but some of those challenges, the county as an agency really needs to understand that we participated in presenting some of those challenges, and we've done work to remove those barriers, but we're not done with that project. And regardless of which jurisdiction it sits in, it's an important project for our community moving forward. I also attended the Ukiah annexation workshop. It was interesting to hear the public comment. I had not previously attended because there's not formally Board of Supervisors ad hoc, but I had not previously attended. And so attending this and hearing some of the feedback or questions was really interesting, because for me, it's some of the communication that we can all improve on. One of them was about abandoned vehicle abatement, which is something that I bring up pretty often. We all pay into that program. And if there are questions about abandoned vehicles in neighborhoods, whether they're in the city of Ukiah or the county of Mendocino or any of the other jurisdictions, there are reporting functions that can happen. There was questions about homelessness. And again, I think, you know, it's confusing to the public about who works on homelessness, what the outreach looks like, where the funding comes from. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities to communicate with the public and to educate about where the funding comes from, what it's used for, that type of thing. I guess that's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Sure. I talked to the CEO about the updating the strategic plan next year, and my preference to not pay a facilitator. I don't think it's a good use of public funds unless my colleagues think otherwise. The Mendocino Community Services District is doing some plumbing rework, which it's wonderful to see that they were able to pull that off. It's desperately needed. I think the work is having an impact on our county roads, and I've asked the CEO and council and director of transportation to take a look to come up with a plan for next steps, because it's feeling like an obstacle course. Golden State Connect Authority is a JPA we're a member of. RCRC started it. I'm the board assignee, and I've been going to the meetings where teleconference is allowed. They have some in person, and I don't think I'm going to go unless my colleagues want me to go. It seems like another poor use of public funds, in that, as far as I can remember, decisions are always unanimous. We're not swaying it one way or another. And they're not working on any projects in our county because we're not receiving any state funds for the unincorporated. So it just doesn't seem very applicable. Maybe something changes in the future that federal funds trickle in for broadband, but nothing on the horizon that's going to benefit us. Sonoma Clean Power, working with Supervisor Haschek, it was an eye-opener too. I think there's more opportunity for us to work with them on projects that may not use our general fund dollars for solar farms and the like. And so I hope we're able to continue those conversations and look more broadly at how Mendocino County can be part of a solar future. I went on a Jackson demonstration forest walk with some of the parties involved with 2494, and I applaud Supervisor Mulhorden for bringing up the broader scope of outdoor recreation. I hear this from the public often, that it's seen as one of our untapped economic opportunities in the county. It's one of the areas the county could be doing more that would have a direct benefit. Mendocino Coast Recreation and Park District has for some time been trying to understand where their revenue comes from, how much of it is from different parts of their district, and the county hasn't been able to provide it. I understand LAFCO has asked for the same information and they've been turned down. If somebody would give me access to the raw data, a few lines of code, I could run through and give them what they want. It doesn't seem like a difficult problem. I can imagine from their perspective, it feels like we're stonewalling. It may be that we need some help from an outside vendor to figure out how to do the query. But this has been going on for more than, more than half a year. And I don't think it's in our interest, because I think they're a great partner for maintaining parks, something that where the county has fallen short. And then I had a meeting with City of Ukiah staff regarding annexation. They just wanted to bring me up to date. This was after they published information. I appreciated the opportunity. I left feeling like I wish they were working for us. They have some really effective staff over there. I did suggest from my perspective that we should take Costco as part of this deal. The CEO is the witness to it. And maybe it's not Costco per se, but it needs to balance out. It needs to be net zero. And I'll tell you, I can't figure out the financials. What Supervisor Mulhorn points out in the beginning, it won't be so bad for us. I think that's true. But I don't know what that starting point is and what the end point is and all the ramifications. So in concept, I think I can see they put a lot of effort into it. They're trying to do something that's a benefit for everyone. I think that could be the outcome, but I don't have a lot of confidence in our ability to ascertain the actual numbers today.
Okay. Yes.
Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, there's a little confusion with my staff at the moment. So I just want to clarify on R6, item 5, you're canceling the true-up minimum tax for 2026. All cultivators pay 2.5% starting 2027, which correlates perfectly with R7, right? Because R7 is effective the 2.5% for tax year 2027. I think we're struggling with our dates there, so thank you.
I'm glad we could clear it up.
Okay, any public comment on Supervisor's report out? No, Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay. So we are now, it's 12:02, we'll go into closed. We have one item, CS1. Is there any public comment on closed session? Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay, we will return no sooner than 12:30. What's that? Yeah.
Creeks.org.
Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
And we have nothing to report out of from closed, and we will adjourn.